This is The Meaningful Way. I'm your host, Luke Iorio. You know, I think it's quite safe to say that I have never met anyone who desires to live in misery. We are biologically conditioned to want to love, to have connection, to have happiness. And I think a smile, laughter, and a kind gesture is nothing short of contagious. And today's very special guest has devoted her life's work to, well, being contagious. And by that I mean spreading joy to homes across America and beyond. And how fitting is it that this time of year, to spread some of the holiday cheer, we're here with none other than Deborah Heisz. Deborah Heisz is the CEO, co-founder, and editorial director of Live Happy, as well as the author of the newly released book, Live Happy, 10 Practices for Choosing Joy. She, along with founder Jeff Olson, leads the company that produces Live Happy, an award-winning bi-monthly print and digital magazine, as well as LiveHappy.com, the Live Happy Now podcast, and Live Happy products and apparel. By combining the science of positive psychology with practical advice from experts on well-being to help people lead joyous and productive lives, the first-of-its-kind company is leading a movement to make the world a happier place. We certainly can use that right now. The adventure of leading the Live Happy team comes after serving as the founding editor-in-chief of the current Success magazine and 25 years plus of management experience in a variety of fast-moving companies. So with that, Deborah, I am thrilled to have you here on The Meaningful Way.
I'm thrilled to be here. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. You know, as I was getting to know about Live Happy, which I've actually followed for a while now, I was looking at so many things, and I think one of the probably most important places for us to begin is making a distinction between what I think most people would consider to be happy or happiness versus authentic happiness, which Live Happy talks so much about. And I was hoping you could kind of begin us there.
Yeah, this is an important distinction, and we get this question a lot. First of all, Live Happy, it can be trivialized, right? Mm-hmm. Happiness is an emotion. You might get it from eating an ice cream cone, from watching a movie that made you feel really good, from a good joke or riding a roller coaster. However it is that you find that emotional elation that people call happiness or call being happy. That's great, and it's part of overall happiness, and you certainly need that in your life. Mm-hmm. But that's not what we're talking about at Live Happy. At Live Happy, we're talking about finding that life where you feel like it's authentic. You feel like it's the life that you want, that you're living the life you were meant to live. Some people define it as finding your purpose, but it's beyond that. It really is finding that point where someone sits down with you and goes, you know what? You have a good job. You got a great family. You make a decent living. Are you happy? What's the answer to that question? Not, are you happy because you just, won the lottery? That's a momentary thing, and we all know that goes away pretty quickly. Mm-hmm. It really is that, are you truly being who you are designed to be, which is different for all of us.
That's interesting, because what you're suggesting and kind of clarifying in that is that there's something enduring in this authentic happiness, that there's a sustainable joy that seems to be there, and it seems to be a certain congruency that we have to really expressing and fulfilling ourselves and who we're really meant to be.
Yeah, Sean Aker has a quote, and I'll paraphrase it. I'm not going to get it exactly right, but his is, happiness is the joy you feel when striving towards your potential. In other words, happiness is the journey. It is the fact that you feel like you're doing something meaningful with your life. The fact that you belong with where you are, and that what you're doing is going to make you the best you possible.
Maybe actually, I'd like to have you speak a little bit more like that on this. Is something I've heard come up a lot when we're talking in this realm of happiness, positive psychology, etc. Is it's about the journey. It's not necessarily about the destination, the result that is there. And I was wondering if you could speak to why is that? Why is it this focus more on the journey, on the process, and not what we're kind of programmed for, which is go out and achieve the next thing?
Well, we all have this mental pattern. When you're in school, you think, hey, when I could just get out, you remember being in high school, God, when I can get out of high school and not be living in my parents' house, I'm going to be happy because I do whatever I want. And then we get a little more mature and it becomes when I find the perfect life partner and I get married and I have that family, then I'll be happy. Or professionally, when I get that job, when I become CEO, when I become CFO, when I start my own business, then I'll be happy. And we have a pattern of putting off our own happiness. And what really happens is when you achieve happiness. Let's say when you achieve that moment in life. And I'm going to use the lottery example just because we all think, hey, if I won $5 million, I'd be happy. I'm pretty happy right now. If I win $5 million, I'm going to be really happy. And then you go off and you spend that money and you buy that mansion, or you buy that boat, or you live in this mansion, and you love it, and it's the best thing you could ever do. And 6 months later, it's your house. It's not bringing you joy like it did the moment you achieved it. The moments of achievement we celebrate momentarily. You have to learn to enjoy the process of reaching the achievement. Yes, winning the Olympic gold medal is a thrilling moment, and people who've done that will point at it and go, that is one of the best moments of my life. But that's not a life, that's a moment. And so if we are constantly trying to put off our happiness for those moments, we're going to spend most of our life not being happy, not being fulfilled. And there's a counterbalance to that, which is that if your entire goal in life is happiness, so let's say you set as your goal, I want to be happy, you can't ever actually win. You're never going to be happy enough. You're never going to measure yourself as being done at having reached that goal. So it really is about finding those moments and finding those places and finding yourself engaged in an activity where you lose yourself. The art of flow, as Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi talks about in his book. It's finding that way of living that brings you everyday joy, that is far more meaningful for most of us than winning an Olympic medal or winning the lottery.
So maybe let's use that a little bit, because I think you're starting to suggest a little bit of what I wanted to talk about as well, which is that kind of given where the world is in terms of the speed of technology and social media, all the different things that we've got going on politically, economically, within our corporations and whatnot. Why do you think it is that in the last maybe 5 to 7, 8 years, positive psychology has just been what seems like it's bursting at the seams at this point? What do you think has brought it to the forefront?
Well, it's only been around for a little over 20 years. Marty Seligman really is the father of positive psychology from when he was the head of the American Psychology Association. And so it's really only been around for a while. And really it's the positive psychology is the art of studying how to make well people thrive versus using psychology to make sick people average, which is what all prior psychology was really about, was to get people back to normal. But this revolutionary thought that we could also study how ordinary people aren't just ordinary, but they can truly thrive and feel like they're thriving. It's really only been around for a while. And like all new sciences, academics talked about it back and forth for a long time before the public really became attuned to even its existence. But the reality is most of us, if you ask us what we want to be, what we're seeking in life, genuinely seeking, it's going to be, we may not use the word happy, but we're going to use the word meaning. We're going to use the word fulfillment. We're going to use words, I just want to live a life that I feel like I'm important. Now, these are the words that people will use. And all of that is, what we're looking for. So positive psychology really resonated with people. When some of those books first got published, when Flourish by Dr. Seligman got published, it got a lot of media attention. Now, a lot of people aren't going to sit down and read it, but there have been a lot of articles written about content. Csikszentmihalyi's book, Flow, was written. People gravitated to this because it's filling a hole that was there in knowledge. Because there's all sorts of books about how to make more money, how to get a better job. There's a lot of self-help books about how to lose weight, and all of that's part of your life. But really, positive psychology is this is your life. This is what you need to do to put all those things together to have the life that you really want. And I just think there's a natural natural drawing to that.
Well, and I think it's pretty interesting that some of the books that have encapsulated some of the movement and published some of what's out there, it seems like they express themselves as verbs: flourish, thrive, and it almost to me gives me the connotation that it's that the understanding of happiness and everything that's behind it, in terms of the research and psychology that's there now, is recognizing that maybe happiness is as much a skill and a process as it is the end result and emotion that we get to feel after something's been done. How true do you find that?
No, absolutely. I mean, it is a process. I think most people I don't think most people realize that they could change who they are. I think people want to change, but how many people we label people, well, he's an optimist, he's a pessimist.
Right.
Well, can a pessimist become an optimist? Maybe not, but they become a lot more optimistic. And those are skills you develop. I mean, and they're simple skills. One of my favorite ones is it's a simple activity. Every night, write down 3 things good that happened to you today.
Yeah. Just
3 things good. And they have to be different and distinct. I mean, some days, you might write down, I managed to get out of bed and go to work today, and that's the best thing that happened all day to me.
Right.
Okay. Some days are like that. But if you start that practice and you do that, you're going to start looking for good things to write down. You're framing your brain to look for good. You're training it to look for good. Whereas genetically, we're trained to look for, danger. We haven't been living in civilized society in a way that we weren't worried about bears and lions and tigers for more than a couple hundred years, right? So we're genetically wired to look for danger, to look for floods, to look for dangerous animals. We aren't genetically wired to look for good things. But if you spend every day for a month looking for 3 good things to write down, there's a scientific study that shows that 6 months later, you will evaluate yourself as being more positive or being happier than you were before you started that practice. Even if you quit after 30 days. Do it for 30 days, stop. 6 months later, you still have the benefit, because what you've done is you've trained your brain to look for good things in life as opposed to the negative. And in today's political climate and all the stuff that you run into in social media and all of the sensationalistic garbage that we're faced with every day, it's easy to grab onto that because that's reinforcing your genetic state, the part where you're looking for something to be fearful of. So spend some time balancing that with, hey, I can also spend my time looking for good things, not just being inundated with this negativity all the time.
It's interesting because it relates to a previous conversation that I've had relatively recently, which is very simply stating, we are what we eat. In terms of the media we consume, the conversations we consume, we've got to be really aware of what it is that we're allowing in. And I think you highlighted so well of how to and I'm really glad you brought up specifically the 3 good things from the day exercise, because we begin to predispose ourselves to what it is that we really want to be letting in to our lives. We start to look for those things. And I guess maybe where I'd like to go, because what it also brought up for me is that that's actually a practice that I have followed even with my own children, with my own family for years. And I happen to know that you've been a key contributor to the International Positive Education Network. And for those that aren't familiar, this is a great organization that brings together teachers and parents, students, academics to support collaboration and change in education practice. And so the purpose, and correct me if it's different, but the purpose is to not only instill the fulfillment of intellectual potential, but it's also the development of character strength and well-being for the children. That's correct? The multifold
Absolutely.
Purpose, right? And so I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, absolutely. I mean, it's really important that we understand that education is more than reading, writing, and being able to do math. There's a lot more that our children need to learn to be thriving adults who contribute to society beyond that.
And that's where I was hoping you'd go a little bit is, how is the network working to kind of change the consciousness, as it were, of today's youth and bringing even some of these practices and disciplines, these incredible routines to our children?
Well, one of the things that I'm very privileged, I'm on the board of IPEN, and I'm very privileged to have been around from the beginning of it. And one of the things that's been going on in the world is people are actually studying, a lot of people have been studying, researchers have been studying how to get children to continue to come to school in impoverished societies or in societies where it's not accepted, not required that they attend. How to get children to thrive and stay in school. How to build resilience in children. Building, Angela Duckworth's great new book, Grit. How important that is for thriving, because we've really kind of through the world some of us has changed differently. For example, in the United States, we would say our children have gotten soft, right? They have everything handed to them. They get a trophy for participation. Congratulations, you showed up. It's kind of a very low bar, but we've done that. And in other parts of the world, they just don't have the opportunity or the requirement to stay in education. There's been all this studying going on about this. And really what IPEN is doing is it's bringing together the people who are studying this to share ideas, tactics, to put together research, to really get out into the broader community that there is something to to teaching children to thrive, to giving them the skills that they need to be successful people in life. And what a lot of the studies have shown us is that if you focus on a child's strength, they're more likely to come back to school. We spend a lot of time in school focusing on our deficiencies. You got that A in English, but that C in math, you got to work on that.
Right.
Well, maybe that A in English meant they should spend, Malcolm Gladwell's 10,000 hours on English and learning how to become the best writer, rather than spending those hours on fractions to become merely average. Developing, those are academic strengths. That even goes to character strengths. Children have different character strengths, and getting that into the educational environment. And our hope for IPEN is that we can take this great research and influence educators and policymakers to really change the educational system to be geared towards humans rather than testing or checking boxes.
Well, I love the approach because it really is the development of the skills, the strengths, and the psychology, and not just the memorization of knowledge and information inside of the school system. It's going to prepare our children in a completely different way for an ever-adapting, ever-changing world. From a parent standpoint, I'm curious, what might be one or two things? You shared the best three things, the good three things from the day, exercise. What else maybe as a parent can we do to be more conscious and supportive of our child's development and their happiness and well-being? What would be another practice
Well, for me, I have three children. They're young. My children are between the ages of 4 and 9. And for me, the practice of well-being for them is reinforcing what they do well, not enforcing everything, not saying good job on everything. But, each of our children have particular skill sets and particular things they really enjoy. And putting confidence into a child that they excel at something, and then also allowing them to fail at things, I think is, for me personally, I'm not a scientist. I want to make sure that I say that really clearly. I'm an editor and a business person, not a scientist. But for me, it's, okay, you tried that, you didn't do so good at it. But you know what? There's all these other things that you're good at. And if you really enjoy that, you can try again and you'll get better. But instilling the resilience of practice, my son in particular is a relatively gifted athlete. And there's a time in his development where he's the best. He plays hockey. He's the best guy on the ice. But he's not the best guy on the ice anymore. So I can sit down and have a conversation with him. It's like, what you could be, but you just got to practice. And I'm, you're really good. Your God-given talent is amazing, but you got to practice if you want to be the best. And allowing him to fail to discover that. It's easy. I could put him on a different team and he'd be the best kid on the team. That's not going to grow his skill set. Teaching him the resilience, teaching the growth, but also recognizing that there are things that they just aren't going to be good at, and sometimes you just have to get to you just have to get through the next step, and that's okay. You don't have to be good at everything. Everybody's got different gifts. Right. And it's not a particular, hey, do this, don't do that. It's more a pay attention.
Well, I think it speaks to where, again, going back to the beginning of our conversation, I think it speaks to exactly what you were defining before in terms of authentic happiness. We want people to be authentically happy, meaning happy within who they are. So lean in to what makes them who they are, what they enjoy most, what those strengths happen to be, and not, as you said, the deficiencies. It's not that they can't develop in those areas, but the more that we try to pull them in that direction, the more we're pulling them away from what's naturally who they are.
Yeah, you don't want to take a gifted musician and focus on their athletic skills.
Right.
Why would you want to take a gifted mathematician and make sure they can write wonderful 10-page essays?
Right.
It's just not. We don't think of it that way.
Absolutely.
But we should. And the other piece, just on children, I think the big piece that's missing is this piece that Angela Duckworth's written this book on grit.
Yes.
And one of the great things that she wrote in there is talent counts, but effort counts twice. So we should put that effort towards developing those talents, not towards developing our deficiencies. Otherwise, we're going to become average. And we all have greatness in us. It's something. I don't know what it is.
Well, again, I think there's so much to be said for the striving and struggle in the right context because of what it does form in us in terms of the resiliency, what it is that we're able to build, that grittiness that we learn how to incorporate into who we are and the character of who we are. And it also contributes to how much it means to us when we really are stepping into something we truly enjoy and we start to see that progress come as well. We feed off of that. And so let me take us from what's I think really also interesting is because with a lot of clients and students and leaders, executives, entrepreneurs, kind of across the board that I've worked with and had the pleasure of speaking to and getting to know through the years, I hear this idea that they desire to have and experience more joy in their life and work so often. It's so prevalent. It's so pervasive. And I honestly will tell you that I think the two most interesting words in the title of your book are choosing joy. So it's Live Happy, 10 Practices for Choosing Joy, just to repeat that for everybody, but choosing joy. And I was hoping you could say a bit more about that idea of choosing joy.
Absolutely. Happiness, joy, for me, those are things that you choose in the essence, in the sense that you actually put elements intentionally into your day and into your life that allow you to be joyful. It's a choice you make. The way I put it is there's nothing revolutionary. If you read through the whole book, there's not a single practice in there that you don't kind of go, well, of course that should work. There's a couple that are, like the one I described earlier, that are a little more, okay, let me think through this a little bit. But they're kind of, oh, yes, of course I should. And I'm going to pick out a really, really simple one, which is health is a practice for choosing joy, taking care of your health. If you're unhealthy, you're very unlikely to be joyful or happy. I mean, it's just far, far less likely to be joyful or happy. If you eat right, get enough sleep, and move every day, these are things, how many times have you heard this in your life? You are taking care of your health, and it's one of the contributors to joy. Those are easy things to do. But by the number of people that don't do them, it's also very easy to see that they're easy not to do. You have to choose to do those things. It doesn't just happen that you eat right. It doesn't just happen that you exercise. It doesn't just happen that you get enough sleep. You set an alarm clock. You make your meal. You order off the menu. Whatever it is, you go to the gym. Those are choices you make. All of happiness is like that. All of joy is like that. It's doing the right things for your life every day. And they're easy to do, and they're easy not to do.
Let me ask you, for those that may feel like, and I think health is such a great example for this, and I can certainly vouch for the connection to happiness that has for me, how do they break the spiral? Meaning it is easy to choose to not do those things as well. And if they're caught up in that space, if they're caught up in kind of that cycle, what have you found or what have you seen that works to halt it and get it going back in the direction that you want it?
Well, for me, the one practice that probably stands out the most, and there's a bit of a theme here, which is called three things, right? But the practice is gratitude. Most of us listen to this podcast. We're born here. We're born with enough to eat. An opportunity for an education, varying degrees of safety, security,
Right.
but for the most part, enough. Far advanced of where people were 100 years ago and far in advance of the vast majority of the world today.
Yes.
Even if we weren't, we'd have a ton to be grateful for, and we overlook it. It's almost, in order to be successful, if you can identify, and by successful I mean health, doing something, if you can identify something to grab onto as your why. For me, that's gratitude. For a lot of people, it's gratitude. So if you can distinctly identify, once again, 3 things per day that you're grateful for, it'll reframe your thinking to where it's one of abundance rather than one of absence. It makes it easier to make decisions because you're not in the what if, what I don't. It kind of takes you out of the fear cycle. And I do want to interject here. Don't try and do everything at once. Pick one thing and do it, because that's the main mistake I see people make. I've got 8 working out. They don't decide that they're going to go walk for 10 minutes after sitting on a couch. They decide they're going to go to the gym, and they're going to go to that gym every day for a month. And by day 3, they haven't been in 2 days. Because it's overwhelming.
Absolutely.
Start with small practices.
Yeah.
Don't try and change your whole life overnight. But do something like do a gratitude practice, and then pat yourself on the back, congratulate yourself. We like to celebrate. Hey, I did it. And then add another practice. Hey, I did it.
Yeah.
And that's the way to really make change.
You know, and I've got to say, I'm glad, I'm grateful that you went to gratitude in the sense that that also is a practice that not only I've used, but I know clients have used. And I would even encourage everybody that with those 3 things, share them with somebody maybe that you're sitting down with at dinner, or place a phone call to a friend. And I say that because the more that you verbalize it, if you share that happiness, you share that gratitude with somebody else, it tends to grow. And you get even more energy from that you can use. It's kind of like a disposable energy source that all of a sudden comes to you that you can then put to use in some way. And so
there's this. Sorry to interrupt.
Go ahead.
I was going to say there's this great statistic about gratitude that is overwhelming to me, which is that roughly 75% of us are grateful for our families, and less than a third of us have told them that. And at work, it's even worse. So we're grateful for things all the time, but we don't even say something like 35% of people have never been thanked by their boss for anything.
Yes.
Just think about that. Just a little practice of gratitude is a huge, huge difference maker.
Oh, absolutely. And I mean, everybody just to be able to think for yourself of just at this moment of how much you appreciate it when somebody gives you just even that little bit of recognition, that little appreciation. If you know how well it makes you feel, think about what you can give to others with exactly what Deborah, with what you just shared. That's fantastic. So I guess as we wrap up today, I'd like to kind of close out, because this podcast is all about helping people to find and connect to what we term their meaningful way. And so if I offer that phrase to you, the meaningful way or your meaningful way, what comes up for you?
Be present. For me, I have like a lot of people listening, I'm no different than anybody else. I have an incredibly busy life. My life is scheduled almost down to the minute between work and family, and it's being an entrepreneur. It's really, really busy, and I can get lost very easily in the what I need to do, what I'm not doing, feeling guilty about not being home with the kids, feeling guilty about not getting work done when I am with the kids. But for me, the practice that really defines my ability to find joy in life is be present in doing what I'm doing. What I mean by that is if it's on my calendar and I'm supposed to be there, I'm going to be present for that event. I'm present for this discussion with you. I'm present for my children's hockey game. I'm not watching my phone, I'm watching the game. In a meeting, my phone's off. I'm present for the people in the room. It brings me joy, it brings me focus, and it also allows the people around me to feel valued. And so for me, being present is really kind of my mantra. And if I stray from that, I always remind myself, no, you need to be doing what you're doing right now, not futuring and not worrying, but be engaged in the activity you're engaged in.
Well, Deborah, I want to thank you so much for sharing a bit of yourself as well as showing us a bit of how to live happy today on the Meaningful Way podcast.
Well, thank you so much for having me. It was really my pleasure.
Thank you. And for everyone, I think maybe just the perfect way to wrap up is exactly where Deborah was going in terms of being present in the moment. And going back to the earlier part of our conversation, it's to be present on your journey. Be present to where you are. Enjoy the process of learning, of growing, of paying that gratitude, of being aware of that what's going good for you right now. The more that we're present to our lives, the more we connect to it, and the more meaning we're going to find. So until next time, enjoy the journey. Thanks for listening to today's show. If you enjoyed it, do us a favor and go ahead and share it online. Also, stop by and please give us a review in your favorite podcast player. It really helps us to get the word out about The Meaningful Way. And for you, check out the latest episodes, posts, and inspiration at lukeiorio.com.